Hello everyone, my name is Anat Arzi. I'm at the Hebrew University, and in our lab we study unconsciousness and focus on two main research lines. One is on natural occurring loss of consciousness during sleep, and the other is pathological unconsciousness following severe brain injuries. And in my talk today, titled The Dynamics of Unconsciousness, I would like to invite you to a short tour into the intricate world of unconsciousness, pathological unconsciousness. And I would like to start with a personal story. One of the events that directed a research trajectory into the study of unconsciousness was a seminar I gave during my undergrad studies, which focused on the story of Terry Shivo. Terry was a young woman who suffered from severe brain injury following a cardiac arrest. And after a series of treatments, unfortunately unsuccessful ones, her doctor determined that she is in irreversible, persistent vegetative state, which means that she is currently unconscious and that she will not regain consciousness. Her parents, however, they disagreed with this diagnosis. They did not think that Terry is completely unconscious. And this started long, highly emotional and political struggle that even involved the president of the United States at the time, George W. Bush. And this struggle between Terry's parents and Terry's husband was touching the heart of fundamental questions, such as the right to die. And I was fascinated and puzzled by the story of Terry. And it made me realize the inherent difficulty in answering allegedly a simple question: whether someone is conscious. So why is it so important to know if a person is conscious? Well, accurate detection of consciousness following a severe brain injury has significant implications. At the medical level, it could guide clinical decisions such as pain management and rehabilitation efforts. It could also inform end-of-life decisions, such as the withhold or withdrawal of life-sustaining treatments. And as almost always, our resources are limited, like the number of beds or the available medical staff. The information whether a person is conscious could help in the inevitable need to prioritize the treatment for patients. So how can we truly know if a person is currently conscious? The gold standard tools are behavioral assessment done at the bedside. And in this assessment, we are looking for behavioral, subtle, but reproducible signs of consciousness in response to a range of visual, auditory, and tactile stimuli. And this could be something as simple as visual pursuit, following an object or person, as it indicates that a person can see the object and follow it. However, this is only a proxy for consciousness, and therefore misdiagnosis is estimated of about 20%. And this means that about 20% of these patients, we think that they are unconscious, but they actually are. And as you understand, it has critical consequences. So why is it so challenging to know whether a person is currently conscious? For several reasons, and I will share two main ones. The first is that consciousness level following a brain injury is fluctuating. And therefore, it could be that we are assessing a person on a specific time point, and we can see reproducible signs of consciousness. However, in a follow-up examination, which could be days, hours, and sometimes even minutes after the previous assessment, there will be absolutely no signs of consciousness. Basically, we are just testing at the wrong time. The second reason is that following a brain injury, patients could have sensory deficits, neuromuscular impairments, they could cry, and have cognitive dysfunctions. And this means that I'm asking a person to follow an object, but maybe they can't hear me or can't see the object, and this is why they are not doing that. It could be that they can hear and see, but physically they are unable to move. And it could be that they can see, hear, and move, but they don't understand what I'm saying, because they have cognitive dysfunctions. And the combination of these reasons, the fluctuation in consciousness and arousal level, together with patient-specific characteristics, is what makes the accurate detection of consciousness one of the most challenging clinical tasks in modern medicine. In order to deal with this great challenge, advanced imaging techniques have been developed, and they were indeed able to detect covert cognition in behaviorally unresponsive patients. This is an example, an image for the first study that scanned the brain of a young patient that by all behavioral signs was unconscious, but looking at the brain activity, it was evident that when she was asked to imagine that she plays tennis or navigate around her house, the brain activity was very similar to healthy controls. And this was groundbreaking and exciting. But these techniques are not available to all patients. For example, if a person has a metal part in the body, they cannot go into the MR scanner. And these techniques they are costly and require expertise. And therefore, in practice, they are not available outside of specialized centers. And therefore, there is a real need in accessible and affordable tools to accurately detect consciousness in patients with severe brain injury. And this is part of what we are trying to do in the lab. So our aims are to elucidate the neurophysiological processes that support our ability, the ability of patients to recover consciousness, and to develop new diagnostic and prognostic tools based on brain-body interaction during the recovery of consciousness. So to give you just a sneak peek into what we are actually doing in the lab, I would like to share with you one of our studies. And I like simple. So what we did in this project, we looked at the very basic and fundamental characteristics of our body, respiration. And our respiration is a very sensitive sensor to our ability to sense the environment. For example, if I smell a fresh bread, I will take a deep inhale. However, if I go by a full garbage bin or public toilet, I will take a smaller sniff. And what we did was to measure the respiration of patients that are hospitalized in the Department for Consciousness Rehabilitation at the Levenstein Hospital, while we measured the respiration while we gave them to smell pleasant odor as perfume, unpleasant odor as rotten fish, and just blank jar with no specific odor. And we discovered that unresponsive patients do not actually modulate their sniff in accordance with the different odors. So on the y-axis is the normalized sniff, on the x-axis is time, and you can see that all the sniffs, all the trace of respiration are basically identical. However, when a patient is showing signs of consciousness, you can see a very clear modulation in respiration. So in blue, you can see the smallest sniff for unpleasant odor, a bit bigger one for pleasant, and the largest for clean air. And what was even more exciting is that the ability to modulate respiration in accordance with the properties of the odor was a very strong indicator for recovery of consciousness and also for survival several years after the injury, indicating that our respiration is a strong biomarker for consciousness recovery. So in our work, our goals are to enhance the understanding of what are the processes that enables the recovery in consciousness, and based on those, to develop new diagnostic tools and improve the prognosis after a severe brain injury in order to give and improve medical care. And to end, Jackson Pollock, in his work, believed that he's tapping into the unconsciousness. As a scientist, I hope not only to tap into unconsciousness, but to elucidate how we decipher the world while being unconscious. Thank you.
Questions for Anat?
I'm Alex from BGU. I'd like to know what happened in this case in America in the end.
It was a very, very long struggle because her parents were religious. So it was, they believed that she's conscious, and they think, based on their beliefs, religious belief, that you should not unplug people. After years, the court decided that she will be unplugged. So basically what they do, and it's quite horrible, they starve people to death. I'm sorry for being so dramatic, but this is the situation in many places. There are places in the world where they decide to take an earlier decision and to stop life-sustaining support much earlier. And it's open for a philosophical and ethical discussion. What is the right thing? Each one of you can think, if it might happen to, I can say for me, if it might happen to me or to my beloved one, what I would like to happen, that will happen. Thank you for this question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this great talk. I'm Max from Tel Aviv University. I was wondering how patients or people that are asleep behave in your olfactory testing. Like, does the sniffing adjust while sleeping? Do we enter that state of unconsciousness during sleep that we do not respond to the sniffing test? Or what's the observed behavior there?
Thank you very much for this question, because actually the study that we did during sleep was what made us think about this study with patients. So we found that also while we're asleep, we're able to process odors from the environment and respond according to the properties. So we take a larger sniff for pleasant versus unpleasant odor while we're asleep, both in non-REM sleep and REM sleep. So we definitely process information from the environment and respond behaviorally by modulating our respiration. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Flavio from Hebrew U as well, in a different department though, and so I wanted to, it's interesting you mentioned that the Schiavos were religious, right? From a cultural perspective, obviously, the boundary between conscious and unconscious is super fluid, right? So for example, I'm a historian of Tibetan religion, and most of what we're doing here consciously, in their eyes, is in a way we're blind to true reality in a way, right? So there is an actual cultivation of these states of unconscious because they're potentially more powerful, right? So in terms of that ethical element, I just wanted to highlight that we're working within a very particular modern Western framework, obviously a hospital framework, a medical framework that is determined by Western standards. And so I think there is potential too there for the conversation to include other perspectives, maybe from our own past and from other cultures.
And I think now it's a very hot time for consciousness study, especially in the framework of artificial intelligence. What is consciousness? So I think it's an excellent time to open this debate in many, many directions. So thank you for raising this issue. Thank you very much.
I'd like to ask a question.
Oh.
We have a couple of minutes. So I just wanted to ask about the ethical standards that you require in your experiments, because you can't get the consent of your subjects that are lying, either conscious or unconscious, to, I don't know, stick a raw fish in their nose. So how does that work?
Thank you. It's an important point, right? We cannot ask the patient, would you like to participate? Well, we can ask them, but usually they do not answer. But I would like to stress that I do, when I do the experiment, I behave as if they're completely conscious, because I do not know. So I speak with them and explain them exactly what we are doing. But before we start, the medical doctor in the department is talking with the family, explaining about our experiment, and ask if they want to participate. Many times they want, and I think it's also good for the patients because they are exposed to more stimuli, and it can only do good. Although the unpleasant odor are not a pleasant experience, but I think the more sensory stimulation that the patient receives could only benefit their situation and not harm them.
Makes sense. Thank you, Anat.
Thank you, everyone.